Okay, good morning, everyone. We're just going to pick up from the Mishnah. Yeah, please, you can read. Hatemed, achelo hechmitz, eno nikach, b'kesav meiser, uposel es hamikva, mishehechmitz nikach b'kesav meiser, eno posel es hamikva. So we're going to talk about this first case, really most of the day. You have the thing called temed, which is a drink that you take water and you soak it in sediment of wine or in grape seeds. And once it ferments, so the Gemara says if it has not yet fermented, it's considered to be water. Once it ferments, it's going to be considered to be wine. Now, what's the nafkamina? So we know that kesav meiser, if you go ahead and you poda meiser sheni, so the Gemara in Eruvin tells us that based on the pasuk, you can only buy with kesav meiser, you can only buy food, and food that reproduces, food that get its sustenance from the earth. So you're talking about buying food like wine would be fine, because it's made out of grapes. Water would not be fine. So temed achelo hichmit, if it's not yet fermented, we consider it to be water, and therefore you cannot buy the water, the temed, with meiser sheni money. Uposel es hamikveh, in the opposite way, that a mikveh, we know if it doesn't have 40 sah, so if 3 lug of water falls in, it's going to be a problem. If less than 3 lug of water, if it's mixed with wine, then it's not necessarily going to be a problem. So again, since it's not yet fermented, it's considered to be water. Therefore, if it falls into a mikveh, it's going to be posel the mikveh if it doesn't yet have 40 sah of water. But if it was wine, once it's fermented, if it's wine, then it's not necessarily going to be posel the mikveh if 3 lugin fall in. Says the Gemara, mishehechmitz, once it's fermented, so again, now it's considered to be wine. You can buy nikach b'kesav meiser, ve'eno posel es hamikvah. It does not disqualify the mikvah. Ha'achin ha'shutafin, again, you did this yesterday, so we're not going to chazer too much, but ha'achin ha'shutafin, the brothers who are partners in their father's estate, kishchayavin b'kalbon, peturim mimaiser behema. There's an idea that, in general, when you have partners, they're going to be pater in meiser behema. Only an individual is chayav in meiser behema. But when you have partners, they do have to pay a kalbon. A kalbon is when you have 2 people that bring a shekel instead of half a shekel each. Just like when you bring half a shekel, according to Rabbi Meir, you need to add a little bit more because the shekel is not 100% silver. So too, when you bring 1 shekel for 2 people, you need to add. So it says kishchayavim bechalbon. That means that when they're actually partners, so then you consider them to be chayavin bekalbon. That's when they're partners in their father's estate, even before maybe it was necessarily split up, before they divided it, they're still partners. Again, once they divide it, everybody becomes their own man. So for sure, they each have to give meiser behema, and they each have to give a kalbon. But over here, where they're still partners before it was divided, so the meiser, they're patur in meiser behema because they're partners, but they're chayav in kalbon because at the end of the day, they're still, each person is their own. However, kish chayav in meiser behema, when they really still what? When they're chayav in meiser behema, when their father, I guess we would say that they go ahead and they split it up, then they're going to be chayiv meiser behema, p'turim min ha'chalbon. But again, before they go ahead, not getting into too much detail, before they actually split it, so their father, if he would give a shekel for them, then they would not have to give the kalbon. Again, we spoke about that yesterday in the Mishnah. So let's concentrate on the first part, because that's confusing enough. Says the Gemara, mani mas nisan. So who is our Mishnah, which says that temed is considered to be water until it's fermented, and therefore you can't buy temed, which is unfermented, with meiser money. It says in Gemara, lo Rabbi Yehuda v'lo Rabbanan. The Tanya, we have a separate Mishnah, which is in Masros, or Tnan. It's either a Mishnah or Brayso. It seems to be a Mishnah. The Tnan, hamitamed v'nasan b'mayim b'mida. If you take sediments and you pour a certain amount of water on them, so let's say you have grape seeds and you put a gallon of water in them, and you want to prepare temed. That's how you prepare temed. You put water with the grape seeds. So now what happens? So says the Gemara, umatza kedei midaso. Now he goes ahead and he lets it sit in the grape seeds, and then he strains it, and he finds that how much is in there? Exactly a gallon. So he collects exactly a gallon of liquid. Now the question becomes, well, how do you treat that liquid? Do we assume that that liquid is exactly what it was in the beginning? It's water, and now it's flavored water, and therefore lemaisa, obviously, you wouldn't have to give trumas and meisos on it, and you can't buy meiser with it, can't buy with meiser money? Or do we assume that some of the water or most of the water went into the grape seeds, and the wine came out of the grape seeds, and lemaisa now we're going to consider it to be wine? So it says the Gemara pater. So the Tanakama says that since it was a gallon of water that went in, and it's a gallon of water that came out, all it is what? we assume that it was just that gallon of water, and it was just a little bit flavored by the grapes, and water is water, and therefore you can't buy meiser with it, you can't buy it with meiser money, and you're not chayev in meiseros. For Rabbi Yehuda mechayev, Rabbi Yehuda is mechayev, Rabbi Yehuda is mechayev that liquid to chumas and meiseros, and seemingly you could buy it with meiser money. Why? Because he assumes that the original water goes into the grape, which then what? Gives out the equivalent amount of grape, and therefore it's still a gallon. We assume that it's wine. Okay, so it's a machlokas and metzios, it sounds like. Does the water go into the grapes, or does the water just remain water, and it's like flavored vitamin water versus being wine? So says Rabbanan, our Mishnah is neither one of them. Why? Because this Mishnah in Maestros doesn't mention anything about it being fermented. It just says you put it in there. Whether it ferments or not, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're considering it to be wine. And according to Rabbanan, it seems like even if it ferments, and again, that's where I get confused. I don't understand the exact materials, but even if it ferments, means that's some type, I guess, of alcoholic type, like I don't know, vodka type taste. Even if it would ferment, you consider that ferment to be fermented water, not fermented wine. And Lamaisa, he's going to try this at home, he's going to consider it to be fermented water, and Lamaisa, that's still going to be water. That's what it sounds like. The fact that it's fermented doesn't necessarily make it wine. So again, since the Mishnah doesn't say anything about fermenting or not fermenting, it sounds like our Mishnah is neither one of them, because our Mishnah specifically says it goes from water to wine as soon as it ferments. And this Mishnah says it's nothing to do with fermenting. It has to do with whether we assume that the grape seed went into the water or not. If it went into the water like Rabbi Yehuda, it's wine. If it didn't, it's water, but nothing to do with fermenting. That's why the Gemara say, money. Who's our Mishnah? I Rabbanan. If it's Rabbanan, afagav dehechmitz. Then even though it fermented, it should be considered to be what? In our Mishnah, it should be considered to be water. Because at the end of the day, it's considered to be water because the Mishnah Maisus does not distinguish between whether it's fermented or not. So if they say a gallon is a gallon is a gallon, whether it fermented or not, it should be water. And that's not what our Mishnah says. Our Mishnah says hechmitz when it ferments, but this Mishnah Maisus doesn't say anything about hechmitz, about fermenting. So it can't be, our Mishnah which talks about hechmitz cannot be the Rabbanan, because even if it's hechmitz, it should still be water according to Rabbanan. Our Mishnah says, once it ferments, once it's hechmitz, it's wine. Well, that can't be the Rabbanan, because the Rabbanan say what? Even after it's hachmitz, it's still water, unless what? If it's a gallon, it's still water. Rabbi Yehuda, if it's Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yehuda says what? Rabbi Yehuda said over there that it's wine, even if it's not hechmitz. Avagav de lo hechmitz, we still consider it to be wine, because we assume what? We assume that if you had the original water in there, it became wine, even if it never fermented. So why does our Mishnah, which brings in fermenting? So obviously our Mishnah, which brings in this class, this category of fermenting, is neither Rabbi Yehuda or the Rabbanan. So now you have two Mishnahs. You have one in Maestros, which talks about not fermenting, doesn't talk about fermenting at all, and says there might be water, it might be wine. You have a gallon that goes in, a gallon that comes out. Maybe it's water, maybe it's wine. Then you have our Mishnah, which specifically says it's water until it ferments. Two separate things. That's two man d'amar, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan, and this is a third man d'amar. Says the Gemara, maybe not so simple. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Baravua. So Rav Nachman says, what does he say? Kishehichmitz machlokes. No. We are going to combine the two of them. That in Maestros, they're arguing once it's hechmitz. That means we assume that the Mishnah over there in Maestros was not dealing with hechmitz at all. Now the Gemara is saying what? No, it's dealing specifically with hechmitz. That means there we're dealing with hechmitz. And what do? You mix a gallon and you get out a gallon. And it's hechmitz, and it's fermented. So the Rabbanan say water, and Rabbi Yehuda says what? Wine. So who's our Mishnah, which says that once temed ferments, it becomes wine? Who's that? That's Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, Kishehechmitz machlokes. It's only when it's hechmitz it's a machlokes. That Rabbanan would say it's still water, which is hard to understand. But the Rabbanan are basically saying it's fermented water. And Rabbi Yehuda is saying ridiculous fermented water. It's fermented wine. Even if it doesn't ferment, it's still wine. So it's machlokes b'shehechmitz. What happens if it wasn't hechmitz over there? The Gemara doesn't here say what happens if it wasn't hechmitz over there. Seemingly, Rabbi Yehuda would agree that it's water. Mm-hmm. That's what he's understanding. He would agree that if it's not hechmitz, it would be water. So it says Gemara though, but the dispute over there is kishe hechmitz, and Rabbi Yehuda considers it to be wine, right? Umasnis and Rabbi Yehuda, in our Mishnah, which says that once temed ferments, it's no longer water, now it's wine. Again, I know this all sounds crazy because you don't know what temed is, but once temed ferments, it's no longer water, now it's wine. That's going to be Rabbi Yehuda, who says over there that once it ferments, it's going to be wine. V'chein amar Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina, kishehechmetz machlokes. Again, so our Mishnah, which speaks of water becoming hechmitz and becoming temed, becoming wine, that's going to be Rabbi Yehuda. Fine? Good.
So temed that's not fermented, could we say it's like grape juice?
Temed that's not fermented sounds like, according to our Mishnah, is water.
Water.
Right. It's like light. It's like kedem light grape juice, right? Temed light grape juice, which is not.
So we're not going by Tom.
We're not going by Tom. We're going right. Says Gemara, Amar of Nachman, Amar Rav Barvua. So that's what Rav Nachman explains, and therefore you don't have to say that our Mishnah is neither Rabbi Yehuda. That's the advantage of Rav Nachman. You don't have to say that our Mishnah is neither Rabbi Yehuda or the Rabbanan. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, not the Rabbanan. Again, temed, which is this mixture of water with grape seeds. Until it ferments, it's water. Once it ferments, it's going to be considered to be wine. For Amar of Nachman, Amar Rav Barvua, he says something else. Temed shelekachel b'mais b'kesem ma'isa. So what did we say? We said in our Mishnah that until it ferments, it's considered to be water. And therefore, if you buy temed with meiser sheni money, you can't. Right. Because you can't buy water with meiser sheni money. You can only buy, we said, wine with meiser sheni money, because with meiser sheni money, you have to buy something that grows in the ground, that reproduces, etc. But he adds a chiddush. Temed shelekachel b'kesev meiser. If you buy temed with kesev meiser, which you shouldn't have done necessarily, ulevasov hechmitz, and it eventually ferments. Because again, we say that it's eventually going to ferment. All things being equal, we assume it's going to ferment. So at the time you bought it, it was temed. It was light grape juice. Then eventually it fermented. Then it became wine. It was grape juice and then it became wine. So when it was grape juice, again, we can't really call it grape juice because that's not a good example. But when it was water, you shouldn't have bought it with meiser sheni money. Now that it eventually ferments, so what happens? Kane meiser. So the Gemara says, actually, retroactively, the liquid has acquired meiser holiness. What's the nafkamina? Well, it's a big nafkamina for the seller. The seller who sold it to you got money. If he sold you water, that money still has kedushas meiser on it. If he sold you
water,
no, that was water. If he sold you wine, then now he's off the hook because now the wine gets the kedushas meiser, and the money that he has is now chulin money. He can do whatever he wants with it. Right. So the Gemara says that we can assume, according to Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Barvua, and it's a chiddush. He says even though you shouldn't be buying temed with meiser money, if you do, and it eventually ferments, so then kana meiser, the meiser actually transfers to that thing, and the seller now has money that he could use for anything, and the buyer has meiser sheni food. My taima igla mil salamafreya de perehu, because when it eventually ferments, it shows that at the time that you bought it, it really was quote unquote already a fruit. Again, the requirement was that it's a fruit in order to buy it with meiser sheni money. If it eventually ferments, so that shows that even at the time of the purchase, it was in the process of transforming from water into wine, and therefore lamaisa would be good. That's his chiddush. Says Gemara elamasnisan diktani hechmitz in lo hechmitz lo dilma ishaf gehava machmitz. Now the Gemara says within Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Barvua. Again, this is a difficult daf, but it's geschmack. He says that our Mishnah, it says what? That once the water ferments, that what? You can purchase it with meiser money, but temed achelo hichmitz, before it ferments, you can't purchase with meiser money. Says the Gemara, lo hechmitz lo, dilma ishaf gehava machmitz. I don't understand, says the Gemara. Why is it that you can't purchase unfermented temed with what? With meiser sheni money? And it sounds like if you do, what happens? It's no good. If you buy it with unfermented, if you buy unfermented temed with meiser sheni money, the sale is like void. Mm-hmm. But yet, what are we saying over here? We're saying over here that if ulavasov hechmitz kana meiser, not just that, as Rashi explains, the Gemara is suggesting that most temed actually eventually ferments. So why don't we go based on rov according to your svara? We should go based on rov, and if you buy unfermented temed, lamaisa it should be chal. Now what happens? Obviously, if you buy the unfermented temed and it stays in your possession, and you see that it doesn't ferment, then you know. But the Gemara is even suggesting if you buy unfermented temed and then you lose track of it, you as the seller can assume that what? You can assume that it turned into fermented, that it turned into wine, and lamaisa you should be able to use the money for anything you want.
Why can't you say the simplest answer is l'chatchila b'de'avad?
The Gemara doesn't want to say that because the Gemara seems to be saying that hechmitz. It seems to be saying that even that
at the time of
it says even b'di'evet.
At the time of the purchase, it's not kosher because it hasn't.
The Gemara is saying why not? Why can't I buy it lechatchila? If Rove tells me that it's going to turn, if Rove is telling me that it's going to turn into wine, what do I have to wait till it turns into wine? Let me buy it now. Rove tells me it's going to turn to wine. Rove on a deraisa level tells me that lemaisa right now it's wine. That's a Gemara's question.
No, and also when it does turn in, it's lemafreya, so it would make it chal.
Right, correct.
So that's
Well, it's not just that it wouldn't make chal. It's that the Gemara is saying even more than that. It's saying that when it actually turns, it shows you that now it was already peiros. So the Gemara is saying, why in our Mishnah, according to your svara, why in our Mishnah do we say hatemed achlo hechmetz eno nikach b'kesav meiser? Why not? Rove, it's going to turn into the thing. The fact that it voids its purchase seems to be telling you that what? That if it's not yet fermented when you buy it, it's not eligible fruit and you can't consider it. Says Gemara, Amar Rabba, you're right. If you lose track of it, enochanami, our Mishnah would tell you it's okay. Yeah. However, kishashir mimenu bekos velo hechmetz. I don't know why the seller would do this, but the seller basically left some of the temed in a cup. He gave you most of it, and he left some in a cup. I guess he wanted to be extra clear. So now he leaves some in a cup. He sees that this temed never turns into wine. So now he knows that what he sold you never turned into wine, and Lamai said that's the only reason that over here he can't use that money for anything he wants. But had he not done this experiment, he would have just sold you temed, and he would have just taken the money, he would have been okay.
Why can't he think this is the end of the run?
I don't know. The Gemara says, I don't know. The Gemara doesn't suggest that. How do you know it's the end of the run? This might be the beginning of the run. Who knows?
Left in the cup after the whole thing went through.
What are you talking about? He poured off from the top.
But I'm saying there's not.
Who said he's doing it that way? Maybe he's doing it the other way. Maybe he's pouring off from the top a little bit and then giving you the rest. You could, but we don't know for sure. We don't know. That's one answer. Rav Amar, so our Mishnah is talking about this very specific case. In general, temed, you can assume based on Rov that you can purchase it with meiser sheni money because you can assume it's going to ferment. But lemaisa, our Mishnah is talking about this specific case where the seller kept some for himself. Don't do it at home. Rav Amar, ha-mani Rabbi Yochanan ben Nurihi. Rav says a different answer. You don't have to go that far. He says you could even learn that this is Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. What does Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says? So Rav Nachman argued what? Rav Nachman argued that it's based lemafreya. It's argued that whatever happens at the end, if it eventually ferments, then you know that it was wine. If it doesn't ferment, then you know that it was water. But in order to do that, you have to say that our Mishnah is a very specific case, where we actually prove that it never fermented. Rava says, why do we have to go that far? Why can't we say something that's a little bit more general? How will we do that? We'll say that our Mishnah is Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. How do we do that? Dnan. Gimel lugin mayim chaser kortov. If you have 3 lugin of water that's drawn less a kortov, you have 2.99 of water. And what do we say? That if you have less than 40 sa, once you have 40 sa of water in a mikvah, you can pour whatever you want in, quote unquote. If you have less than 40 sa, 3 lugin of water ruins it. So you have 2.99 of water, that was drawn water. Shenaf alatochan kortov yain, with a little bit of wine. Umareyan kemarayan, and it looks like wine. So now you got less than 3 lugin of water, but together you have 3 lugin of a liquid. So what's the story now? What do you do? If you treat it like what? Water, then the mikvah is pasul. If you treat it like wine or like anything else, then lemaisa it's going to be kosher. V'naflu mikvah lo psaluhu. You don't pasul it. Why? Because at the end of the day, it sounds like, as we'll see in just a second, let's see. Gimel lugin mayim chaser kortov. You had a thought you don't pasul because it looks like wine. Says the Gemara, no, even if it doesn't look like wine. Gimel lugin mayim chaser kortov shenafal atochan kortov chalav maran kemari mayim v'naflu mikvah lo psaluhu. That's what he holds. So the Tanakh holds it doesn't matter. Even if it looks like water, because again, if a little bit of milk falls in, it still looks like water. It doesn't matter what it looks like, says the Tanakh. We've had this before. The Chachamim say what? Ilmaisa, you need 3 lugin of water. And even if it looks like water, if it's less than 3 lugin of water, it doesn't ruin it. Even if it looks exactly like water, 2.999 plus milk, plus yayin, plus whatever you want, not going to pasul the mikvah. 3 lugin of water, done. Maybe they would agree 3 lugin of water with wine. No, they would say no, pasul. 3 lugin of water is pasul. Comes along with Yochanan ben Nuri, and he says no. Yochanan ben Nuri omer hakol holech achar hamara. He holds it all has to do with mara. It all has to do with what it looks like. Therefore, what? Seemingly, he would say 2.9 with wine, that's fine, because it looks like wine. 2.99 with milk, ruined it. Because of Maisa, it's white, it's water. If it's white wine, then maybe fine, yes. Says the Gemara, Hakol olech achar amara. So what do we see here? Lava Rabbi Yochanan basar chazusa aslinan. He says we go after the appearance. Therefore what? Hachanami zil basar chazusa. In our Mishnah, we should go after the appearance. V'taima v'chazusa dahai mayaninu. He argues. And he says, even though Lamaisa, you're going to tell me that eventually, even if rove is going to turn into fermented, even if rove of temet is going to ferment and turn into wine, right? And that's what we said. And that's what Rav Nachman held. You go based on what it's going to turn into. Rav Yochanan, Rav is arguing that what? You have to go based on the appearance. And as long as it has not yet fermented, it doesn't matter that it eventually will ferment. What happens until it ferments? Until it ferments, what does it look like? It looks like water. And until it ferments, what does it taste like? It tastes like water. Therefore, he would argue, even though Lamaisa it's going to turn into wine, he would say Lamafreya. We don't say Lamafreya. We say, as we always compare, freeze frame versus what it'll turn into. If you freeze frame right now, Lamaisa, it doesn't look like wine. It doesn't taste like wine. It looks like water. And therefore, he would hold that Lamaisa, our Mishnah is literal. And until you go ahead and you ferment it, it's going to be treated like water. That's what Rabbi Yochanan would hold.
Gimel Lugin Mayim is the same as Arba'im Se'ah?
No, it's much less. Gimel Lugin is a tiny amount.
It's just to complete
Gimel Lugin is to complete the 40 sa. If you have 40 sa of water, you can put in as much of other water. That's what we do. If you have less than 40 sa of water, even
Lugin.
no, or anything less, it doesn't matter. Oh yeah, or even if it's less and you're going to put in more, but Lamaisa, once you put in 3 lugin of water, less than 40 sa, so you could say 40 sa minus 3 lugin. If you put in 3 lugin of mayim shuvin, you ruin it. Correct. It's a little bit. So the Gemara here is again suggesting that what do we have? We go based on the appearance, and therefore that's the opinion in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is the appearance, and seemingly again it has nothing to do with this discussion over there. Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda you would explain differently in that Mishnah in Maisros. When you mix water with the grape seeds, it all has to do with the appearance. And Lamaisa, our Mishnah is literal, and until it ferments, you cannot buy Maisa Sheni money with it because it's going to be considered to be water. Now, that was Rava. Going back to Rav Nachman, Upliga de Rabbi Lazar. Again, just to complicate things a little bit more, Rav Nachman said that the machlokes in Maisros between Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda, where again, the case where you put a gallon of water onto grape seeds and then you strain it and you have a gallon of water afterwards, Rabbanan say water, and Rav Yehuda says it must be wine. And the machlokes is whether the water went in and the grape came out, or it just was flavored water. So we said Rav Nachman held, forget about our Mishnah for a second, going back to that Mishnah. Rav Nachman held machlokes b'shehichmitz. The machlokes is when it ferments. Then Rabbi Yehuda would say wine, and Rabbanan would still say water, because we assume that a gallon is a gallon. But if it's not hechmitz, then even Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's water. But now, pliga de Rabbi Lazar, Damar Rabbi Lazar, hakol modim she'em afrishin lavi makom acher. Even Rabbi Yehuda agrees you can't separate Meiser for this temet for another temet. Elim kain hechmitz. Let's see what he means for a second. Kasavar below hechmitz machlokes. He's arguing, Rabbi Lazar, and he's saying what? The machlokes is not bishe hechmitz, like you just said, Rav Nachman. The machlokes is kishelo hechmitz. When it's not fermented, the Rabbanan say it's water, which I understand, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's wine even when it's not fermented. And the Rabbanan are the ones who agree that when it ferments, it's going to be wine. So again, according to Rav Nachman, it was a machlokes only when it was actually fermented that Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's wine. Otherwise, it's definitely not wine. And over here, we're saying Rabbi Yehuda holds even when it's not fermented, it's still wine, because again, it doesn't matter that it's fermented or not. We assume that the water comes in and the wine comes out. But even Rabbana would agree that if it ferments, that lamaisa, it's going to be wine. What's this whole thing we're talking about now? Hakomodim she'em afrishin lavi malkom acher. Rabbi Yehuda's still a little bit nervous. What does that mean? Usually if I have 2 things of wine, I could take off, and again, we always want to grab the concepts. If I have 2 things of wine, I could take off Chumas and Maestros. I could take off double portion from this wine for this one. Either I could take off a portion from here and a portion from here, or I could take off a double from here and cover this as well. Says Rabbi Yehuda, I tell you that, Lamaisa, if you ask me about one of these things, Temet Achelo Hichmetz, where you go ahead and you pour it in here, and you have a gallon, and then you strain it, you have a gallon, I'm going to agree that in halachically, we're going to treat it as what? We're going to treat it like wine. Right? We're going to treat it like wine. Therefore, it'll be l'chumra. You have to take off chumas and maestros, right? But you can also be kona meister sheni with it. But as you say, I'm not going to go so far as to be mekil with this temed. What does that mean in English? Usually, if I have wine and wine, I could take off 2 from here to include this one. But when I have 2 temeds, even though I'm treating it as wine, I understand that there's still a possibility that it won't ferment. And if it doesn't actually ferment, then in retrospect, according to this opinion, it was really water. And if I end up taking off from here for here, and this was really water, then this one, which is really wine, ends up being tevel, and never had anything taken off. So Einachanami, I'm going to treat it like wine, and I'm going to tell you can use your Meiser Sheni money, fine. If that ends up backfiring, fine. I'm not so concerned with that. And if it was by itself, I would say you have to take off Trumas Maisos l'chumra. But when we're both temed, and I'm not sure 100% that they're both going to turn in, or that either one's going to ferment and turn into wine, then each one you need to take off Trumas Maisos for its own in case the other one doesn't turn into wine, or else you'll end up having tevel for the other one. Because again, if you only have one, it doesn't end up turning into wine, you're fine, because you didn't have to take off Trumas Maisos in the first place. But if I took off Trumas Maisos from here for this, and this never ends up turning into wine, and this one does, then I'm stuck. Then I end up eating this without taking off Trumas Maisos.
He's more concerned about tevel, and he won't go.
Sounds like he's more considered with.
But as far as money, he doesn't care.
Correct. Again, he's not as concerned when it comes to the Meiser Sheni money.
All along.
No, but he's not as concerned with the Meiser Sheni money. It would sound like you can use it for Meiser. You can actually, if you have Temed, you can go ahead and you can buy it with Meiser Sheni money. But you have Temed, you can't go ahead and you can't exchange one for the other. Again, you have to separate for itself. Aval ba'amalo, dilma asi lefrushe min hachiyuv ala pater. You might go in from the chiyuv for the pater, or min ha-pater ala chiyuv. Ad kan hakafa aleph. Says the Gemara. Hard enough. I think this is the hardest stuff in the parak thing. Okay, says the Gemara. Now it gets a little bit easier. Says the Gemara. Tumentara. Okay, says the Gemara. We know that people and utensils can become tamei. But we also know that water can become tamei. Liquids can also become tamei. However, you may not know that if food and drinks become tamei, there's no way to be mitahar them. And if you want to eat something and you're tar and you don't want to eat tamei food, you can't eat it. There's one exception. We know that water can become purified through a process called hashaka, contact or kissing, right? What happens? That's what neshika is, contact. What is it? What you do is you basically take a bucket with tamei water, you put it into a mikvah till it's just right below the surface of the mikvah. Some of the mikvah water goes and makes contact with the thing. It's similar to the way that we fill up, not with tamei water, but it's similar to the way that we fill up mikvahs. We fill up the mikvah and then we have the drawn water and it opens up. There's a little hole where they're touching and sort of makes the whole thing into mikvah water. But lamaisa, over here, same thing. You take tamei water, you put it underneath the mikvah. As soon as it's a little bit below the surface, some of the tahor water goes in and kashers, by contact, it kashers the tamei water. But that only works by tamei water. It doesn't work by other liquids. So Tana Rabbanan ha-temed, so how do we treat temed? How do we treat temed achelo hichmitz? So again, temed achelo hichmitz, if you have this stuff until it ferments, so if it's considered to be water, then what? Then you can kosher it, quote unquote. You can make it tahor. If it's not water, you can't make it tahor. Temed achelo hichmitz, what's the status? Mashiko b'mayim. You can go and you can purify it with mayim because it's considered to be mayim. Mishe hichmitz, once it's fermented, ein mashiko b'mayim. You can't go ahead. Now it's wine, and like any other liquid, you can't go ahead and you can't purify it. Amar Rava, and I'm going to clarify, Rava obviously makes sense to him. I don't understand it, and neither does the Gemara. So I'm going to present Rava and say that when we read it, we don't understand what Rava is talking about. Rava is going to suggest that that it makes a difference even within temed what happened first. Whether you pour tamei water onto the grapes, or whether you poured tahor water and then it became tamei afterwards. Says the Gemara, what's an afkamina? Amar Rava, lo shanu ela shetimdu b'mayim tahorim. When you say that you could take this temed, which is being treated as water since it's not yet fermented, and you can kosher it, you can only kosher it when you pour tahor water over the grape sediment, v'nidmu, and once it's temed, it becomes tamei. Since it's temed, but it's really what? Water, you can be mitayr it. Aval tamei meikara lo. But if you take tamei water and you pour it over the grape sediment, that cannot be koshered. The Gemara is going to say, what's pshat? Why would that be? Azarav Gevia mi beikatil amar l'shmaita k'mei Rav Ashi. Ma'ishna tamein meikara delo. Why should it be that if it's tamei originally and you pour it over grape sediment, that can't be koshered? Why? Maybe because damrinan aide demaya yakire shachne tate. Maybe you could say that water is heavy. So what happens when you pour the water onto the grape seeds? What happens? The water goes to the bottom, like water and oil. Let's say water goes to the bottom, and what comes to the top? All the grape stuff. So when you do hashaka, what is the tahor water touching? Not the water, it's touching the grape stuff. Even though the whole thing in general is considered to be what? Water, because it's temed, it's not fermented. But we want to imagine maybe the reason that when it's going to be a problem is because, again, when you pour tamei water on, so now the water goes straight to the bottom, and the grapeseed stuff comes to the top, and when you do hashaka, you're doing hashaka on grapeseed stuff, which is not mayim, even though we're treating the whole thing as mayim, it's kissing the non-mayim part, and therefore the mice is not going to work. Gemara says, ridiculous. Why? You're going to say the maya goes up, upere kape mayel, and the pera comes up. That's a nice svara, that's fine. But why should it matter if you pour tame water on, or if you pour regular water on, and then it becomes tame? Either way, if water is heavy and it goes to the bottom and the peras come to the top, who cares whether you pour tame water or not tame water? If I pour tahor water, so why is it okay to do hashaka? You should say the same thing. If I pour tahor water, the tahor water goes to the bottom. The whatever sediment is in there, which is not enough to make it wine, and it's still considered to be water, comes to the top. Says Gemara, Ela mibabale. Rather, it must be that when you pour water into grape sediment, the whole thing mixes. Halchanami mibabale. So to here, the whole thing mixes again. So now you have temed. Temed is being treated as unfermented, it's being treated as water. Therefore, Lamaisa Rava, the Gemara is saying, is wrong. And whether it's what? Whether you put in tame water onto grape sediment, or you put tahor water and then it becomes tame because somebody touches it. Lamaisa, either way, since it's considered like water because it hasn't yet fermented, either way, you can kosher it with hashaka. Again, it's hard to understand what Rava's Havamina was, but clearly he knew what he was talking about. Says the Gemara, a few more minutes. Says the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, the next two Mishnahs are going to talk about a Nara versus a Ketana. We know that there are three stages. You have a Ketana until she's 12 years old and has 2 pubic hairs. Then she's a Nara from 12 to 12 and a half, and then she becomes a Bogeres. So we know that there are certain halachas. We know that when she's a Nara, her father is allowed to sell her. But we also know when she's a Ketana, her father's allowed to sell her. But if she's what? If she's raped or seduced, for the Torah says only a Nara has the penalty. So a Ketana, kol makom sheyesh mecher, which is what? A Ketana. Anytime you could sell the daughter, ein knas. There's no fine because, again, for the fine for a seducer or for a rapist, the fine that needs to pay the father of the girl, it specifically is what? It's specifically talking about a nara. So if you're talking about kol makom sheyesh mecher is a Ketana, ein knas, because that's only by a nara. V'chol makom sheyesh knas, which is what? Which is a nara. Ein mecher, you can no longer sell her because once she becomes a nara, you can no longer sell her. Amar v'yud Rav zu devar Rabbi Meir. This is Rabbi Meir. V'chachamim omrim. Chachamim say no. Yesh knas b'makom mecher. They say that even when she's a ketana, there's still a knas. And they hold that when it says nara in the Torah, that a nara gets a knas, a father gets a knas if the nara is seduced or raped. It says nara, if you know, nun ayin resh without a hey. It's missing the hey to tell you not only does a nara get a knas to father, so to a ketana. So he would say that a ketana can be sold, and at the same token, she also gets a knas. So again, the nafkamina would be a ketana knas. Everybody agrees a ketana can be sold, a nara cannot. Everybody agrees that a nara gets a knas. The question is, does a ketana also get a knas? Rabbi Meir says no, that's our Mishnah. And Chachamim say yes, even a ketana gets a knas. Says Gemara, Detani ketana v'asiyam echad at shetavi beisaros yesh la mecher ve'ein la knas. Mishatavi beisaros at shetibager yesh la knas ve'ein la mecher. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's our Mishnah. Shahai Rabbi Meir omer kol makom sheyesh mecher ein knas, kol makom sheyesh knas ein mecher. V'chachamim omrim ketana mibas gimel shanim v'yom echad at shetibager yesh la knas. No, she gets a knas even when she's a ketana, not just when she's a nara. Knas in mecher lo. Does that mean that she specifically gets a knas and no mecher? Gemara says no. Ema af knas b'makom mecher. So again, everybody agrees ketana gets a mecher. You could sell a ketana. Everybody agrees a nara gets a knas. They're arguing. Rabbi Meir says that a ketana does not get a knas. If somebody rapes or seduces a ketana, the father does not get a knas. And the Chachamim say that the nara without a hey teaches me that even if she's a ketana, she still gets a knas, the father. Then there's another case by nara which is called miyun. Miyun, we know that miyun and chalitza, that if a father marries off his daughter who's a ketana, again, he can only marry off his daughter who's a ketana. Once she's married off, that's it. She needs a get if she wants to separate from him. However, you assume a father has the best interests of the daughter. If the father dies and the mother or brother are then rabbinically allowed to marry her off to somebody, but there's something called miyun. Since it's only a rabbinic marriage, therefore she can refuse. And if she's a minor, up until she's 12 years old, she can refuse. Once she becomes a nara, once she becomes 12, she can no longer do miyun. And the opposite is also true. She can only do miyun until 12. She can't do miyun after 12. Again, if her mother or brother marries her off before she's 12, they can't marry her off when she's 12. And the opposite, chalitza, if the husband dies without children, chalitza is done only with a nara and up. It's not done with a ketana. So we're going to say wherever you do chalitza, miyun doesn't apply, because it's right. So Gemara says, kol makom sheyesh miyun, which is when she's a ketana, ein chalitza, because chalitza doesn't apply to a ketana. V'chol makom sheyesh chalitza, when she's a nara, ein miyun, there's no longer refusal. Amar v'yud amar Rav, zu divrei Rabbi Meir. This is Rabbi Meir. V'chachamim omrim, yesh miyun b'makom chalitza. Chachamim say that there actually are certain cases, which it doesn't explain here, there are certain cases where a nara can even do miyun. There are certain cases where even when she becomes a nara, she could do miyun. Detanya ad matai habas mimayenes at shetavi shtei saros. Div Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda omer at sheyar behashachar alavan. It's not 2 saros. She has to have a lot of pubic hair. That means it's not just specifically when she becomes 12 and has 2 saros that she can no longer do miyun. Even after she's 12, there's still a period that she can go ahead and she can do miyun between 12 and whenever she goes ahead and gets her full pubic hair. So again, the machlokas that they're arguing about is only whether a nara at the very beginning of her naras can do miyun or not. Rabbi Yehuda says yes, and Rabbi Meir says no. But everybody agrees otherwise. In general, only a katana can do miyun, and chalitza. Everybody agrees chalitza is only a nara and up. And the machlokas is whether everybody agrees that a katana can do miyun. The only machlokas is can a nara for the first few months do miyun. That's the machlokas. Finally. And you go to Yerushalayim today, so they have the little siren that goes off before Shabbos. So it sounds like that's based on the Gemara, which I never knew. The Gemara says, "Kol makom sheyesh tekiya ein havdalah." Whenever there's a tekiya, there's no havdalah. V'chol makom sheyesh havdalah ein tekiya. Whenever there's havdalah, there's no tekiya. What's this blast? So the Mishnah over there in Shabbos discusses that they would sound tekiya, trua tekiya twice. An hour and a half before Shabbos, they would sound a tekiya so that people in the fields should return to town. A little while later, they would do a trua, that what? All the shops, even in town, should close. And then a little while later, they would do another tekiya to tell us that Shabbos is here, right before sunset. So tekiya is for the fields, trua is for the shops, tekiya is for Shabbos coming. After that, it says that the second tekiya was that you should set up the stove and the oven. That was still a little bit of time before Shabbos. That was an hour to an hour and a half before Shabbos. Then, again, as they got closer to Shabbos, an hour and a half before, an hour before, and then half an hour before. As they got very close to Shabbos, they would do another tekiya, trua tekiya, to say that Shabbos is here, or that the festival is here. So, kol makom sheyesh tekiya, whenever there's a tekiya, there's no havdalah. Kol makom sheyesh havdalah in tekiya. What does this mean? Well, it means Yom Tov shechal yos be'erev Shabbos. Let's say Yontif falls out on Friday. So what do? So what does it mean that there's a blast, but there's no havdalah? Well, if Yontif falls out on Friday, then what happens? Token v'lo mavdilin. You still have to do the tekiyas, because even though people are not in the fields or working, what are you allowed to do on Yontif you can't do on Shabbos? You can cook. So we need to do this tekiya, trua tekiya, towards the end of Friday to tell you that Shabbos is coming and you can no longer cook. But we don't make havdalah when you're going from Friday to Shabbos. When you're going from Yontif to Shabbos, you don't make havdalah. You just make a regular kiddush, and that's how we paskin. However, what? Token v'lo mavdilin. So we sound the horn again. People have to know that they can no longer cook. But you don't do havdalah because you're going into a day that's more kadosh than Yontif. Yontif is one kedusha. You're going from one kedusha to a higher kedusha. You don't do havdalah. However, b'motzei Shabbos. Now, the second one, when it says when there's havdalah, there's no tekiya. That's b'motzei Shabbos. That's when the Yontif falls out on Sunday. So at the end of Shabbos, what do? Mavdilin. You make havdalah like we do. We make havdalah in kiddush. Ben kodesh lakodesh, as we'll see. V'lo token. You don't have to make a tekiya because anything you could do on Shabbos, anything you can't do on Shabbos, you can't do on Yontif, and you can even do more things on Yontif. So we're not going to make a tekiya to warn you. If anything, you're allowed to do more now. You can start cooking. That's what the Gemara says. That's the Gemara. So Ketzad Mavdilin. How do you make havdalah when you have Yontif that comes right after Shabbos? So what do? Hamavdil ben kodesh lakodesh. You make a Kodesh Kodesh the way that we do it. Rabbi Dosi Omer ben Kodesh Chamor leKodesh Hakal. We don't pass like this because you're basically calling Yontif Kodesh Hakal. We don't like that. But he's saying Kodesh Chamor from Shabbos to Kodesh Hakal, which is Yontif. Zok the Gemara. Heichi Tokeya. So how do you go ahead and sound the horn again when you have a Yontif on Friday? Usually you sound like we said Tekiya, Trua Tekiya. So the Gemara is assuming that if Yontif's on Friday, we're going to go ahead and we're going to sound it a little bit differently. Because it's different than a regular, ordinary Friday. Because again, when you have a Yontif on Friday, so there's already restrictions on Friday. So we don't need the regular Trua Tekiya Trua. We want to make it a little bit different. The second set, again, the first set we're not doing on Yontif because you're already not working in the fields and you're not in the shops. But this set that's telling me that Shabbos is coming, you do it a little bit different on Friday. That's going into Yontif, into Shabbos, as opposed to Friday's Yontif. You do it differently on Friday Yontif than you would do on a Friday Chol. So how do you do it differently? Amar Yehuda, what do you do on Friday Yontif? Tokeya umeiriya mitoch tekiya. You blow a tekiya, and then you blow the trua within the tekiya. That means you basically go and you do the tekiya, and without pausing, you do the trua. So it's like one long sound. Do 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 do. That's one long sound. V'Ravasi amar tokeo meiriya b'neshima achas. He says you do it with one breath, but you actually take a pause. Do, right? So you pause, but you have one breath. Edkin Ravasi behutzal kishmaita, he did it the way that he felt. Meisvei, but it says Yom Tov Shechalios Be'erev Shabbos Token V'lo Marie, and it sounds like you don't do a true at all. My love, Lo Marie and Klal, sounds like you don't do a true at all. It contradicts both of them. Lo, Rav Yehuda Mitaretz L'Tamei, Ravasi Mitaretz L'Tamei. Rav Yehuda Mitaretz L'Tamei, he'll say, well, what does it mean Lo Marian? You don't do the regular trua. They both say you don't do the regular trua, but you do it the way that we say Lo Marian B'fnei Atzma Ela Mitoch Tekiah. You don't do a regular trua, you do it with the Tekiah. Ravasi Mitaretz L'Tamei, Lo Marian B'shtei Neshimos Ela B'neshima Achas. Finally, says the Gemara, Uvemotze Shabbos, at the end of Shabbos, which is again going into Yontiv, you say Amavdil Ben Kodesh LaKodesh. Heichi Amarla. So it's very interesting. We know that we say it in davening, and we also say it in Kiddush. So the Gemara is not asking about davening. The Gemara is asking in Kiddush. When we say it in Kiddush, it's interesting. You actually say it twice. Where do you say it twice? What do you say? You say Baruch Atah Hashem Hamavdil Ben Kodesh LaChol. In general, you say Ma'avdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol twice, in the beginning of the bracha, and then you end Baruch Atah Hashem Ma'avdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol. So Gemara says, Heichi Amarla, where do you say this Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh? Do you do it twice? Do you do Ma'avdil Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh Ben Or L'Chol Ben Yisrael, which is not what we do. That's not what we do. We do Ben Kodesh L'Chol Ben Ocha Ben Tom Yom Shoshem Ma'aseh, Baruch Atah Hashem Ma'avdil Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh. We only put Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh at the end. Gemara says, maybe we should put Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh in the beginning as well. It's very interesting. It says Gemara, Rav Yehuda Bechatimasa, V'chenamar Rav Nachman Bechatimasa, Rav Sheish Brei Rav Idi Amar Af Bepetichasa, V'les Hilchasa Kavase. It's not like him, it's like we do. Why is it like we do? Because think about it for a second. When we start the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol, Ben Or L'Choshech, Ben Yisrael Amim. We're not praising God for right now, for this moment. We're saying God in general is Mavdil between Kodesh and Chol, between Or and Choshech, between Yisrael Amin, Ben Yom HaShvi L'Sheshes Me'amasa. This is not, again, between Yom HaShvi and Sheshes Me'amasa. This is between Saturday night and Sunday. Baruch Atah Hashem, Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh, that's for now. The end of the bracha is for now. I never thought about that. The end of the bracha is Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh, that's for now. The beginning of the bracha is just praising God in general, that He's Mavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol in general. That we're not going to change for now, because that's in general. That's the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Gemara, Reb Dosi Omer Ben Kodesh Chamar L'Kodesh Achal V'les Hilchsa Kavase. Again, like I said, we don't paskin like him to end Baruch Atah Hashem Ben Kodesh Chamar L'Kodesh Kav, because that makes Yontif sound negative. Finally, the Gemara says, Amar Bizera, Yom Tov Shechalios Be'emse Shabbos. So we understand why we say Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol when we're going from what? From Shabbos Yontiv. We say the beginning Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol, that's praising God, but we end Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh from Shabbos Yontiv. What happens to regular Yontiv? Regular Shabbos say Kodesh L'Chol. What about a regular Yontiv? Yom Tov Shechalios Be'emse Shabbos in the middle of the week. Omer Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol. Ben Or L'Choshech Ben Yisrael Amim. Ben Yom HaShvi L'Sheshes Me'amasa. Similar to what we said, that when you go from what? From Shabbos to Yontiv, you still say what? When you go from Shabbos to Yontiv, you still say Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol, Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh. You still say Kodesh L'Chol, but you say Ben Kodesh L'Chol in the beginning, even though it's not Kodesh L'Chol, because you're praising God. So too, on a regular Havdalah, you say what? A regular Havdalah, you still say Ben Yom HaShvi L'Sheshes Me'amasa. You're not going Ben Yom HaShvi L'Sheshes Me'amasa. Here it's Tuesday night. No, that's the praise of God. The end is Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol. That's what this is, specifically this frame. But the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just like we say Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol, even when it's Friday, when it's Motzei Shabbos to Yontiv, it's not really Ben Kodesh L'Chol, but that's the praise of God at the beginning of the bracha. So too, at the end of a festival, we praise God, Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol, even though, again, we praise Him, Hamavdil Ben Yom HaShvi L'Sheshes Me'amasa, even though it's not Yom HaShvi now, because that's praising God for generally being Mavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol Ben Yom HaShvi. Baruch Atah Hashem Mavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol. That's for this specific thing. My time as Seder Avdalos Humona. You're just mentioning all the separations in the beginning of the bracha, and the end of the bracha is specifically for now. So Shabbos Yontiv Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh. However, if it's Shabbos T'Chol or Yontiv T'Chol Ben Kodesh L'Chol. Hadron Allah HaKol Shochtin.